The Denver Broncos' early struggles on first and second down impacted Bo Nix in the offense on third down. Sean Payton has his quarterbacks back. We'll talk about that and more here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Denver Broncos are doing some soul-searching after Sunday's loss to the Los Angeles Chargers, where the offense struggled to get anything going. But Sean Payton has his quarterbacks back. We'll welcome into a brand new episode, Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. You know it's your team every day. Thank you so much to all the everydayers out there in Broncos Country. Thanks for tuning in, making us your first listen, however you choose to do so here. And on today's show, we're going to go through Sean Payton having Bo Nix's back, essentially, especially on some of the deep ball passes that Bo had missed in Sunday's game. Plus, we've gone back and we've watched the All-22, and we've gained a lot of perspective that the Broncos offense has some issues on first and second down, not just third down, that they're going to have to clean up if they want to improve going forward here. Plus, we'll go through RJ Harvey and his weird lack of involvement here inside of the Broncos offense, even though they try to manufacture some touches. What is the story here with the Broncos rookie running back? And then we'll also highlight why Jonah Elliss needs to be talked about more after having an impactful 3-week start to his season. You get all that here on today's episode show, brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Sayre, we had our Monday conference call with Sean Payton, the aftermath, where we've had a chance to go back and watch the All-22. Sean certainly has at this point. And one of the first things he was asked about was the deep balls that Bo had missed in Sunday's game here. Really kind of had Bo's back, essentially, when talking about the importance of this, saying that where this was at in terms of his concern level was very minimal based on what we had seen on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think that's fair because, when you're looking back at a game like this, Cody, obviously you're doing a little detective work. You're trying to figure out, okay, why did it happen the way that it happened? Why were they in these situations in the first place? And you posted on your Twitter account that the Broncos, their third down situations, it was miserable. And Sean Payton said after the game, I was kind of shocked to hear him say this, but the average for third downs in this game, when the Broncos were 2 of 13, mind you, the average third down distance was 3rd and 11 plus, is what Sean Payton said after the game. And that's simply like, you talk about a game in which you're looking at the difference between the Chargers having 80 plays offensively and the Broncos having 48. You can trace it directly back to that. It's a lack of success on first and second down that obviously goes back to a number of different things. It's penalties, it's game flow, it's execution, it's all sorts of these things coming together in this sort of tornado of terrible things for the Denver Broncos to have to deal with. And obviously that's the source of the struggles for this team right now. Is 9 first downs in this game is a direct result of having third and unmanageable pretty much every time you're in that scenario.
And the Broncos forcing 2 takeaways essentially was the reason they stayed in this game. That's what Sean Payton told us in a conference call that we had with him. But to that third down point that you mentioned, 13 third down attempts total. 10 of those 13, Sayre, were third and long situations. I did a film breakdown over there at Mile High Sports if anyone wants to go check it out there. But you see how the Chargers played defensively. They were predominantly over 50% in their dime personnel, 6 defensive backs. And in those third down situations, number 0, Diane Henley, they had him spying Bo Nix the entire time. So even if Bo wanted to tuck it and run, they had a guy specifically spying Bo for that while taking away everything in the passing game. That is a good defense there in LA. And the Broncos didn't make it easier for them. They made the Chargers' life easier because, oh, hey, 3rd and 12, we're going to play the sticks. We're going to take away the deep stuff, and we're just going to rally and tackle. There's dirty hands on this operation. So, yes, while we continue to say, yes, Bo Nix didn't have a great game and he struggled, it's not solely on Bo as well. You saw some inconsistencies as well in pass protection on first down, second down, third down. The run game was non-existent in that first half. And really outside of J.K. Dobbins' big-time run he had to come out of the second half, the Broncos really didn't run the ball well at all in this game. And there was a lack of running, which we'll talk to a little bit later about the involvement of RJ Harvey and others here at this standpoint. But Bo, Sean has his backs. Here's what Sean had to say on the deep ball misses from Bo from Sunday's game.
Look, I look at there's the 2 deep throws, the flea flicker, and then the third down play. And I mean, I think you got to be careful you're not overcoaching a deep ball that's going off the fingertips. Now, we've seen a couple in the last 2 weeks And yet someone asked me about it yesterday, and I think that the more concerning problem would be is if we're leaving those balls inside where they're susceptible for an interception. So he's climbing the pocket. He's doing a great job. Both of those are third and long situations where there's obviously a different type of pass rush, but that's not what's concerning to me this morning after the loss yesterday. Would be the deep ball misses. That wouldn't be what's on my mind.
And you know what? It's interesting, isn't it? Because Bo Nix got a bad rap out of college for being a check down merchant. And here we are, and everybody's criticizing him for overthrowing the ball deep downfield. I mean, it's a tough league, Cody. And you and I talked about this after the game, that the margin for error for this Broncos team right now, when you're playing against two teams that are undefeated and well coached and healthy for the most part, I mean, it's a very razor thin margin for error. And obviously you got to hit the throws. Bo Nix should be expected to make those throws. He's a first round starting quarterback for a team with playoff aspirations. And more than that, obviously, with what Sean Payton has said this offseason. So there's a reason why the expectations are what they are. But I kind of agree with Sean. I mean, right? When you're talking about missing on deep throws, wouldn't you rather miss long than, well, like he said, inside, where a defensive back could come over and make a play on the ball, or missing short where it's like, man, you let a defensive back undercut the ball and things like that? I mean, you want to put the ball on target perfectly. You want to drop it in the breadbasket downfield. But at the same time, I think, yeah, he's kind of spot on there, and you can't overcoach these things. You have to go out there and hit those plays. But that's what it is right now, Cody. It's not a matter of, man, he doesn't have the arm strength to get it down there, or, man, he's noodle armed, or whatever the case may be that people thought about him a year ago. It's really a matter of just timing, hitting, and executing. And that requires perfection on those types of plays.
And there's instances where Bo's fundamentals and mechanics certainly aren't where they need to be. There's times where he's throwing off platform, or he's running up in the pocket and he's throwing and launching himself forward when trying to throw a pass. There's instances of that, but there's also instances that I broke down in my film review where Bo is setting his feet. He anticipates there's going to be someone that's going to hit him. He hangs firm and he still delivers some throws. Granted, you didn't have success in this game in particular against the Chargers, but there are inconsistencies all around Bo, which we always talk about. Sean says, we want to paint a great picture around the quarterback. Here's what Sean had to say about that picture around Bo. He felt like it was way too inconsistent.
I think it was too inconsistent. There were too many minus plays. And so yesterday was a day that I would say the job degree difficulty factor, it was a hard day to play quarterback when your average third down is 3rd and 11. So if we're not more efficient on 1st and 2nd down, the best in our league are going to struggle with the numbers that we gave him on 3rd down. So that's the thing that stood out was not only the penalties that set you back offensively, but the minus plays. And that has to be corrected for us to be a quality offense.
It's tough because you look at this, Cody, and the Broncos, they averaged 5.5 yards per play. And when you see that kind of a number compared to the Chargers at 4.7 yards per play, you're kind of sitting there a little confused. Like, well, they're averaging 5.5 yards per play. Well, a lot of that was honestly Bo Nix is doing. You go back and you watch the film and you see that he's out there making plays on the ground as a runner, like the close play that he almost converted one of those 3rd and longs. He almost converted that with a great scramble. The 4th down plays, obviously had the touchdown to Courtland Sutton and then had another really great throw to Courtland to push the Broncos into scoring range. So the only reason the offense had the success that it did outside of the one drive, like you mentioned, where they rode J.K. Dobbins down the field was because of Bo Nix. But yes, in a game like this, where your defense is on the field for 80 plays, your efficiency on early downs, especially in the first quarter where offense was non-existent, it's just too hard for a quarterback to overcome. Any quarterback, like he mentioned. I mean, we've seen Patrick Mahomes struggle a lot this season because the Chiefs are struggling with similar stuff. They can't get things going on 1st down, constantly in 3rd and long situations, guys being covered downfield, first option being taken away. You're relying on yards after the catch and you're not getting it because teams can rally and tackle in obvious situations. So it's tough to play quarterback in the NFL. But yes, we do expect more out of Bo, especially when the pressure is on to win these tight 1-score games.
100%. And that's the thing, Sarah. I feel like we can criticize Bo fairly. Like, we're getting both sides of the spectrum where if we don't criticize Bo, we're homers. If we criticize Bo, we're being too tough on him. Whereas I feel like we're playing it in the middle saying, yes, Bo, fundamentally, footwork, mechanics, confidence, these things, he didn't play good on Sunday. But we can also acknowledge that there's things going on with this, and that are impacting him as well. And it's just like, there's no middle ground these days. I think in anything, in life or football, whatever you have, there really is no middle ground. But I think it's important to have these nuanced discussions. And when you go back and you watch the tape, I always still think the saying is true. It's never as good as you think it is, and it's also never as bad as you think it is as well. That's the game. There's a lot to correct here, and there's a lot of pressure on Sean. There's a lot of pressure here on Bo Nix. So how will they respond this week on Monday Night Football? That's going to be the big test. We can't wait to see on Monday next week here. But Broncos Country coming up next. What is the story with RJ Harvey, the Broncos second-round rookie, who there was a lot of expectations on as well, but he's hardly been utilized. What's up with that? We'll break it down here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's episode of Locked On Broncos is brought to you by friends over there at 5 Hour Energy. And caffeine just got a flavor upgrade because 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. And what I love most is how portable they are. You can take them with you anywhere on the go. Big taste, tiny shot, doesn't matter where you're at. You can take 5 Hour Energy with you today. One of my personal favorite flavors, I love the blue raspberry. I also love the apple crisp flavor. You get that, and it's a jam-packed boost to energize your day. So do that here with 5 Hour Energy. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in-store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today.
The Denver Broncos must get RJ Harvey going here as we enter week 4 action. Why is his involvement lacking, and how do the Broncos fix it? We've got some answers on today's episode of the show, Broncos Country, but want to quickly say we appreciate every single one of you for making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day every single day. It's a long season, Broncos Country, so don't forget to rock with us every single day because we'll have you covered with an episode of the show. Hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. We really appreciate you for doing that. Let's talk RJ Harvey on today's episode because obviously the Broncos second round pick, a highly anticipated player, a lot of explosive ability, big playability. We saw that manifest in week 1 with his huge run against the Tennessee Titans and kind of figured, man, that could be the start of something special for RJ Harvey, even if he's not getting a ton of carries or touches every single week. At least he'll be able to make the most of what he does get. But unfortunately, against the Los Angeles Chargers here in week 3, Cody, just 2 carries for 2 yards, right, for RJ Harvey in this one, and a couple of plays that I think there was some meat left on the bone there. Let's talk about that first with RJ, because I think that's kind of the source of the struggle right now, statistically speaking, is his best run was wiped off the board and a catch and run opportunity was eliminated by a couple of his teammates.
Yeah, and look, I always this is the sour point about going back and watching the All-22. 2 carries for RJ Harvey. That's simply not enough, Sarah. The coaching staff has to find a way to get him more looks and more touches. Certainly, we could say the same exact thing here for J.K. Dobbins. I understand right now Sean Payton is rotating 3 different running backs, but Tyler Bede, being active, only had 2 offensive snaps in this game, and on one of them, he missed a key blitz pickup by the Chargers defense that forced Bo Nix. I mean, the Broncos are trying to run the dagger concept that we've seen Cortland and Bo hit on. Instead, he's got pressure that forces him to roll right, which is completely away from where he has to be. He has to throw the ball out of bounds there. Those are some of the things that we're talking about. Some inconsistencies when you talk about mass subbing in these personnel groupings. That was a little problematic in this game. But I would also say, too, for RJ, to those opportunities that you mentioned, there was one play. It was a 3rd and 8 play here for the Broncos offensively. This was actually a well-designed scheme-up play to get RJ Harvey the ball, right? They kind of motion him out a little bit. It's an empty formation. He chips one of the rushers, and then he runs an in-breaking route where Bo Nix fires a beautiful laser to him. He catches it. Trent Sherfield and Adam Troutman are on the right side. They have to block the corner. Both guys kind of just let the guy run through, and he tackles RJ for about a 3-yard gain versus RJ being able to get it, catch it, get up the sideline, where if those guys block that one corner, RJ's going to get probably 10, 15 plus yards on that play, move the chains there, and all of a sudden it might have changed the dynamic of maybe what you did offensively there. But you're talking about those missed opportunities. That's one that stands out to me in a big way here. And it's frustrating because RJ can help this team. 2 rushing attempts is not going to get it done. But man, when you are manufacturing some of these touches for him, you have to find a way to execute. You talk about the missed block by Sherfield and Troutman on a penalty where Adam Troutman gets called for offsides offensively. Harvey catches it in the flat and gets upfield for a first down. That gets called back. So to me, it's frustrating. It's all these negative plays compounding and taking away potentially really big positive plays, and poor execution being a big part of it as well.
And ultimately, it leads to a lot of the concerns and frustrations about Bo Nix, because when you're wiping those big plays off the entirely, when you're wiping them out, you're really effectively ending drives. You're creating different narratives because of the way the offense performed after those penalties, right? When you had done everything seemingly right, or you had drawn up the right plays, one player or 2 players not doing their job on a specific play kind of starts this snowball effect where, okay, now you've got a 3rd and long situation. Now you're putting more on your quarterback, or now you're asking Cortland Sutton to go make a much more difficult degree of play, right, as a receiver, or whatever the case may be. You're asking, okay, you get a wide receiver screen to Troy Franklin. It's way too long for him to try to get to the sticks. So it's all these sorts of things, like you said, kind of compounding together to create this narrative now about RJ Harvey, where I feel like in the first 3 weeks of the season, even with minimal involvement or minimal snaps for the offense, he has had plays drawn up to where he's been able to make a significant impact. We saw against the Colts that kind of little arrow route that he had near the red zone that got the Broncos into scoring range, into the tight red zone. Really well-designed play, well executed. We're kind of starting to see that role, that vision for RJ Harvey come into fruition. But you also want to continue to ride J.K. Dobbins, right? Because J.K., he's running the ball well for the most part. I mean, 11 carries, 80 plus yards on the ground. I thought for sure, Cody, we manifested the 100-yard running game for J.K. in this one. But once again, it goes back to the fact Broncos 48 plays offensively compared to 80 for the Los Angeles Chargers. I mean, when you have so many penalties on the offensive side of the ball, you just really can't get everybody involved the way that you want, especially when you're wiping off big plays like RJ Harvey had.
To quote my favorite band, Metallica, so close, no matter how far. That's exactly where the Broncos were at in this game. I feel like it's just been an uphill trek for them, that just seemingly they run into rugged terrain. You know, they don't have like the proper equipped shoes to be able to climb. They just keep making these mistakes that compound here. Some interesting data too, as well, that pertains to maybe how the Chargers defense played, especially when the Broncos found themselves in these situations here on 3rd and long, and how they played. I mean, they really tried to take away the explosives, the downfield stuff. They wanted Bo Nix to throw it short and rally and tackle, because if it's 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 19, Sayre, why wouldn't you at that point say, hey, you know what, we're going to protect deep, protect the sticks, we're going to rally and tackle. The Chargers, according to True Media, they played in their dime personnel 50% of their defensive snaps. So that means 6 defensive backs on 50% of their on-field snaps, with 37.5% of their on-field snaps being in the nickel right there. And that usually kind of came in some goal line situations there. But coverage-wise, the Chargers ran cover 3 52.1% of the time, and quarters coverage 29.2% of the time, which means that they have 2 corners, 2 safeties playing deep to take away those explosives. That's very revealing numbers. And when you factor in the Broncos' struggles in those early downs, it made it so easy for the Chargers just to sit back on 3rd down and say, hey, throw it at us. We're ready for it. We're going to break on the football. And obviously, when you go back and you look at a couple of those misses that Bo had, you certainly want those ones back, because those were explosives against that particular defensive look, where you have guys that beat it, that beat the coverage essentially there. So you want to get back to that here this upcoming week against the Cincinnati Bengals. Once again, the 24-hour rule, you sit on the pity potty and then you flush it and you move on. That's what the Broncos have to do, but they have to do so in mind of making sure that, you know, they use a bidet to kind of clean out this offensive thing that they're dealing with right now. But with that said, Broncos Country coming up next, we're going to talk about a little bit of a highlight from Sunday's game and early on here in the season. Jonah Elliss is playing such an impactful role through 3 games, coming up with clutch plays. We need to highlight him a little bit more here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and week 4 of the NFL season is upon us here. Broncos Country, Denver, they are 7.5-point home favorites against the banged-up Bengals, led by Jake Browning after they got blown out by the Vikings this past week. And FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer, because right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app, whether you want to do it on a Monday Night Football same game parlay, anytime touchdown scores, or if you want to pick the games on the money line outright, you can do so inside of the FanDuel app today. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. As we jump into the fourth quarter action on today's episode of the show, Jonah Elliss is going to be at the forefront of our discussion and impact player so far through 3 weeks of the NFL season. While the Broncos pass rush has been very good, very dominant, they got pass rush impact in waves, and Jonah Elliss is leading that charge behind Nik Bonitto and Jonathan Cooper. We'll break him down. I want to say thanks to all the everydayers in Broncos Country once again for tuning in, making us your first listen. We appreciate you. Whether the Broncos win, lose, draw, whatever it may be, make us your go-to every single day for all your Broncos news, content, coverage, analysis, and more. Sayre, I tell you what, like we talked about Nik Bonitto's performance in the post-game report against Joe Alton, the Chargers, and how dominant it was, how exciting it was, and how really if they would have won, we would have been highlighting that a lot in the post-game yesterday. But I do feel like Jonah Elliss is a player we should definitely talk about a little bit more here because, man, you talk about a consistent player. Not only has Bonitto been great, Jonathan Cooper has been really good in his pressure and obviously what he's been able to do. But, man, Jonah Elliss is taking a huge leap forward here in his second NFL season.
And I think that the Broncos need to get him more involved in the defense, Cody. I was watching Sunday Night Football with the Chiefs and the Giants, and I didn't realize that the Giants were able to get all 3 of their big-time rushers on the field at the same time. They had Abdul Carter out there sort of just kind of playing a little off the ball, playing a bit as a quarterback spy, rushing in the A-gap, doing a lot of different things while you had the more experienced guys, Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, off the edge. Why can't the Broncos do something like that with Jonah Elliss and their other 2 rushers? I mean, you want to get the best 11 guys out there. And we've talked plenty about the off-ball linebackers struggling for the Denver Broncos this year. I realize that somebody has to be out there with the green dot, relaying the calls, or organizing traffic, things like that. And I also realize that the Giants may not be the benchmark of, success right now for teams, but I did like the idea, even though, it's 3 edge guys on the field at the same time. Jonah Elliss, he can be that quarterback spy. He can come up the middle. He can bring pressure off the edge. He can kind of show like he's going to bring pressure. And then, hey, if a running back just so happens to run out of the backfield off to the side where he might be able to catch a pass, hey, Jonah, you've probably proven better than any of our other linebackers so far this year that you can actually stick with those guys athletically. So I think that would be something that the Broncos could do to get this guy more snaps, because right now he's just a rotational edge and special teams player. I'd love to see a bit more of a creative usage from him, and maybe they can use the Giants as some inspiration.
I was going to say, too, I was going to ask you, in your ideal situation, if the Broncos were to deploy this defensively, I feel like I would want Jonah to rush the passer in this situation versus playing a spy, though I think he can play that spy role well. I want him rushing the passer. But between Nik Bonitto and Jonathan Cooper, who would you kind of deploy as that spy? I mean, Nik Bonitto has done that before. I mean, that was his role at Oklahoma when he was in college. Jonathan Cooper is also athletic enough to do it as well. I mean, would you rather go with one of those 2 guys as your spy and deploy Jonah as a rusher? Because I think from a rushing standpoint, I came away impressed with him working against Trey Pipkins at times. And not only is Jonah having a huge impact on defense, but we talk about special teams as well. The forced fumble that he had that gave the Broncos even more life in this game on Sunday, that when you go back and you look at the totality of this game, it's like, wow, how did Denver lose that game? Jonah Elliss, man, he created so many opportunities on both sides of the ball there defensively and on special teams.
Yeah, and I think to your question, I think you can get creative with that kind of stuff, like having one of Cooper, Bonitto, or Elliss be that sort of quarterback spy, and not necessarily every single time, right? Because there might be times when you rush everybody and you have Barron on the field as well, who can be that sort of spy. Or, you know what I'm saying? It could be a variety of options there, but I think the relentless style of play that we see from Cooper, Bonitto, and Ellis, like that can be used to Denver's advantage, where they can have those guys all on I would love to see them on the field all at the same time a little bit more often. And I know that's not always going to be possible. I know that, you might telegraph some certain things. And again, you might still be just as susceptible, but really, what do the Broncos have to lose at this point with the way that Singleton has been playing, with the way that their linebackers have been in coverage? I mean, it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world to try, given Jonah Elliss has been one of the biggest bright spots on this entire team so far.
Yeah, it's been exciting to see him. My wife, she's like, I really like this Jonah Elliss guy. And I was like, well, I think he's a Jersey guy. And I would say too, Sayre, I mean, do you think it's safe to say that Jonah Elliss could be a Broncos jersey guy here for fans?
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like
why not?
Well, so there's that. So, I mean, Jonah's obviously a guy we want to talk about here. I also think we should talk about Jahdae Barron a little bit. I mean, he's playing a lot in the dime. I feel like Jahdae in the last couple of weeks in that role, I think he's played well, covering some of the tight ends, covering some of the tighter dynamics that, they've kind of ran into. I've been impressed with his play here. But, you still have the hot topic right now, Broncos country, that people are over Riley Moss here. And I still think, like, yes, he's got to be able to finish plays at the end here, but I think a lot of people are kind of getting caught up in the hyperbole of, oh, there's a catch, Riley Moss is nearby, oh, that's Riley's responsibility. Through Next Gen Stats, according to those things, Luca Evans put this out there, which is great perspective here. As we know, playing opposite of PS2, you're going to get a lot of targets. Riley Moss is the second most targeted cornerback in the NFL, and that's because of PS2 here. But teams are 13 of 27 passing, which is a 48.1% completion percentage when targeting him. He's only given up 170 yards and an 80 passer rating when throwing against there. But you talk about that data, 48% there. He's only given up one touchdown on the year. Sayre, I know that people are freaking out about Riley Moss here. I think that's full on panic there. I still don't think Riley Moss is playing bad football here. I think he's just got to be able to finish on some of those plays. And you talk about the degree of separation on that Keenan Allen touchdown. I mean, there wasn't much separation from Keenan there. Like, if Riley is getting burnt where there's 4 or 5 yards of separation or 8 yards of separation, those big explosives, then I'd say, okay, yes, there's a conversation. But Riley's in position. He's tough. He's just got to find a way to start finishing some of these plays at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, 0.6 yards of separation on that Keenan Allen touchdown.
Crazy.
One of the most unlikely. I mean, when you talk about just a freak play among freak plays, I still don't understand on that play how Justin Herbert wasn't strip sacked by Zach Allen, much less than Nick Bonito almost got his arm as he was following through. And then he makes a throw moving to his left against a corner that has 0.6 yards of separation in his coverage. And so, yeah, I mean, we don't need to play defense for Riley Moss in this. I mean, he's responsible now for the only interception the Broncos have in the first 3 games of the season. Yeah. I mean, he got his hand on the ball there. And yes, he's being tested quite often. So, of course, he's going to come under the microscope, but it would be similar for anybody else out there. Now, do you want to see him making more plays on the ball? I think he's trying. I think that got him into trouble on the one play that he got called for a penalty against the Chargers. He's trying to make a play on the ball, and he's trying to go out there and make quarterbacks pay for constantly throwing his direction. I think as the season goes along, we are going to see that pay off, that aggressiveness on his part, the ability to make plays, the tight coverage that he does have. You're getting tested a lot. And so you've got to go finish those plays, like you said, but I'm definitely not. I'm not out on Riley Moss by any means. I think Broncos fans would be sorely mistaken if he were to go down with another injury, or I don't think the team perceives him the way that the fans do by and large right now.
I can tell you this by talking to some people in the building. The Broncos aren't down on Riley Moss at all. They're very high on him, and it's just a matter of being able to finish some of those plays there. He has good coverage there. He's a good communicator there defensively. He's in position quite a bit. It's just find a way to finish those plays. And that's going to be the emphasis here. And what did Sean Payton even say in the offseason? Playing opposite of Pat, we expect that corner's probably going to get a lot of targets there. I don't know how Jahdae Barron would do in that situation, being there. People are going to say, oh, you're going to throw the rookie into the fire there. I wouldn't do that. I mean, I think Jahdae's role right now is pretty clearly established. I like what he and Jaquan are doing inside the slot. I don't think that the Broncos have an issue right now. And this is something that we ran into last year in hindsight. Remember, Riley goes down with the knee injury. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, we need Riley Moss so bad. And that's just when things are going wrong, and it's just the snowball of negativity, right? when things are going wrong and there's a play given up here or there, it's the absolute worst case scenario. And I just think that's the 24-hour reaction rule here. But when you go back and you watch the film, he's in position. There's not separation really happening by wide receivers against him. And that's a promising thing there. I mean, that's not much you can ask, but got to find a way to finish those plays on the back end there here. But that's, I think, all we need to really say about that here. But Broncos Country, that'll wrap up today's episode of the show. The Broncos focus now shifts to the Cincinnati Bengals. Jake Browning, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Yosavas. They got weapons galore here, but can Jake Browning deliver? The Broncos, they don't – the Broncos, they are hoping that they can prevent that from happening. So all week long, we're going to have you covered on the practice report that's going on with this team. Some of the bigger storylines here as Denver prepares for a Monday Night Football matchup next week against the Bengals. Broncos Country, we appreciate you so much. We'll see you next time for another episode, Locked On Broncos.